when it comes to the issue of eating halal, I think I'm a better Muslim than you.
No, that's...
I can't believe he let me say that. I want to make this video breakdown of this recent street debate that I recorded. I learn a lot from rewatching footage of me in these debates and kind of assessing how I did and what kind of tactics the opposition used. And also, real conversations can be very messy, and there's a lot that I wanted to say that I didn't get a chance to say. Maybe I was cut off at certain times, and so I want to clarify certain points and make some additional points now that I've thought about it a little bit more. Before I go hard on this guy, I will say he was very friendly to me. He's this big guy, complete stranger, never met him before, and he agreed to have this open discussion with me, and it is about his faith, you know, and so he was a good sport. He let me get away with saying some pretty outrageous things. He laughed it off. Really appreciate that. I'm gonna just show some clips of it because of course the discussion is half an hour long. If you want to see the full discussion without me talking over it, it's going to be linked down below in the description. Play a little bit of this just to see where we are in the conversation.
The only reason they do it is because you're paying for it.
Yeah, because it's profit.
Yeah. Do you think they would do this for fun? Do you think they do this as a hobby? So
big industry.
yeah. So what do you think? What's your thoughts on veganism there? Because vegans don't pay for this stuff.
I don't agree with veganism, but I don't agree with the way that they treat animals.
So the first thing I like to do very quickly is I like to walk people through how their purchasing habits connect to the suffering of animals. That's what it's all about. You're trying to show them how it's their decision and they need to own that. It's their situation and it's their activity that is causing the terrible things they see on screen. So they will tell you things like, I think it's atrocious, I think this factory farming thing is horrible, they need to do away with it, they need to change it. You can talk about that and they'll be super friendly, but at some point you have to tell them the unfortunate news, which is that it's partly because of them.
What is it you don't agree about veganism?
Right now it's a conversation, it turns into a debate. You will see a shift where he gets a lot more defensive and it becomes more of a debate. He starts to dig into his position. Before that, you could see he was very receptive. He was very open to the issues that I was talking about. The turning point is when I used the word veganism. A switch went off in his mind, and I would guess that he had had a bad interaction with a vegan in his past. So let's keep going.
Like, I don't agree with not eating meat. I think there has to be a balance, right? You can eat meat, but treat the animals right, do it in the right way.
Very, very typical answer. A lot of people have this as their default answer. Inherent within the animal agricultural system is the act of killing. You can't have meat without killing the animal. So it's an impossible goal. Yeah, anyway.
Is killing the animal within its infancy, treating the animal right?
If you didn't kill any of these animals, you get this, what's the word? The food chain.
Okay.
Yeah, remember there's like Yellowstone National Park.
So there's an excuse.
And because there was no wolves, there was like an increase in elk. And because there was an increase in elk, the vegetarians.
Even though I thought I debunked this quite well in the actual live discussion, I actually saw that there were some comments below the video that were making the same argument of the food chain and about the fact that we should all live like animals. You can watch the full video to see how I debunked this. I didn't do the best job, I think, but I did manage to in the end. So here I want to just present another thing that I didn't get a chance to talk about. Later on, he's going to be talking about religion and about how man has dominion over animals, man is placed as superior to animals, separated from animals, distinctly separate. Which one is it? Are humans selected by God and bestowed with intelligence and dominion over all animals? Human supremacy kind of thing? Or is man no better than an animal? Man should also behave exactly like an animal. We should kill and eat whatever we want without question because that's what wolves do, right? So which one is it? You see, there's a big double standard there. You want to be seen as distinctly separate from animals, but you also want to be seen exactly the same as an apex predator animal. It seems clear to me that we have certain things that animals don't. One of them is the ability, the choice to choose. We're not in survival situation, right? So huge double standard. But also, he's bringing up Yellowstone National Park. We're in London in 2023. Him eating a hamburger in the UK is not helping the wild animals in Yellowstone National Park. It's not helping wild animal populations anywhere, in fact. It's not helping badger populations in the British woodlands. You know what really could help wild animals, though? Getting back the millions of acres of land taken from wild habitats claimed for animal agriculture. Over 83% of the world's land is used for animal agriculture, and we could reduce the world's agricultural land use by an estimated 76% by all switching to a vegan lifestyle.
We forcibly breed these animals into existence, right? There are no farm pigs like these. There are no sows like this unless we ram a rod up their reproductive organs.
I've got another point, yeah.
Credit to him, he did see the error of his point there. He just gave that one up. He's got another excuse ready. I actually made sure to kind of press the attack here. Like, I wanted him to see, not that he was a little bit wrong, but he was disastrously wrong. There are real victims to this. I'm trying to speak up for the victims.
I don't agree with all that, like,
but you're funding it.
Forcing milk. Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Making the connection again. He's
why
funding
do you fund it then?
Because I'm not going to just not eat meat, right?
Why not?
If there was a better...
He doesn't agree with the way the industry is being done, but he still continues to fund it. So the thing I sorely regret about this part, which I can see in hindsight 2020, is that when he said, well, I'm not going to just not eat meat, it becomes clear now that I'm seeing it, that he probably doesn't realize what veganism actually entails. Like, he probably thinks that veganism is this impossible goal. An example to you, like, imagine if your concept of the word exercise to you meant climbing up Mount Everest. And you come to me and you say, man, I've been feeling so unfit, so unhealthy lately. I just want to get up and move. And I say to you, why don't you just do some exercise? You see how, like, you're going to say, hell no. What would have been good is for me to explain and ground a vegan lifestyle and explain how vegan living is actually very, very attainable and very easy for someone living in London in 2023. So we go back and forth a little bit about health. I'm going to try and skip over most of the health stuff because it's been thoroughly debunked, the things that he's been saying.
I look at these bodies that are largely made up of non-vegans who say, yeah, actually, veganism is a very good way of living. And in fact, if we did, we would actually have to spend less taxpayer money on things like the NHS on the large scale. That would save people, taxpayers, money, you know?
What about if I throw in another argument?
So what if I throw in another argument? So it just gets to start again, you know? I think vegans don't really have that luxury. Like, if we get beaten on a point, it's like, done, you're done, you know? But the point that doesn't get brought up a lot, which I've started to bring up because I think it's just a value added to veganism, is the amount of taxpayer money we would save on our healthcare system by all turning vegan. There are tangible benefits to everyone going vegan, and there are tangible disadvantages and trade-offs when we choose to not go vegan, not just for the animals, but also for ourselves. But, you know, let's pivot here. He's going to try now, I think he's going to try with the religious stance.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I'm Muslim,
Yeah.
and I believe so, God says you can eat meat. And humans don't have more knowledge than God.
Yeah, so did God say you have to eat meat?
No, but you can though.
Do you have to?
No.
There is no mandate within Islam, or any religion of that matter, to eat meat. You do not have to eat meat. So this is the point that I just continue to try and press, because he tries to say you are allowed to eat meat. And this is not a reason to not turn vegan. Atheists are allowed to eat meat. Christians are allowed to eat meat. Everyone is supposedly allowed to eat meat. It says nothing about whether it is moral in this modern day and age when we don't need to. It says nothing about whether it is the right thing to do, the moral thing to do.
What does it actually mean to eat halal?
When I said about how they treat the animals in Islam, that's not allowed, right?
Right, it's about treating the animal well. It's about treating the animal with kindness and compassion. It's the reason why I really respect Islam, you know? And this was written in a time long before the industry we have set up here. It's not equipped to actually talk about this industry.
It was written in a different time. They had to eat meat back then, could be the argument, but we have a completely different world right now. over 8 billion people on the planet. There are over 80 billion land animals that are getting killed every year. Every year. If we look at marine and land animals, the amount that gets killed every year is higher than the total number of humans that have ever existed. It is just silly to be pretending like we still live during the Old Testament or during the Quran, during the Hadiths. It's not in the spirit of Islam. To give you an idea of this, if the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was living in 2023, would he knowingly and willingly fund the factory farming industry? Given the amount of respect that he had for all creatures, I think the answer is very clearly no. It's made clear through his teachings, through his writings. All accounts indicate that he ate meat very infrequently out of necessity for the times he was living in, and he scolded anyone he came across who was neglecting or abusing their animal. These creatures, he says, worship God in their own way. Okay, so I'm trying to approach this from a Muslim frame so that I can say to him that even by his own logic, he's wrong, or he's at least on unstable ground, he's on shaky ground.
By anyone's estimations, I don't think what you're seeing is halal. I mean, this is causing immense suffering. And in fact, the most halal thing you can do is be a vegan.
I wanted to say that, like that's a line I wanted to say to a Muslim, and I got my chance here. I don't think I should have handled it like that. Let me hear that bit back again.
By anyone's estimations, I don't think what you're seeing is halal.
I should have used the Socratic method, and I didn't use the Socratic method. The Socratic method is framing things in the form of questions. So instead of saying, I don't think this is halal, I should have asked him, is what you're seeing on these screens halal?
I mean, this is causing immense suffering.
Is it causing suffering?
And in fact, the most halal thing you can do is be a vegan.
But you don't really know what it actually thinks.
No, of course not.
So this was a strange point. I think this was bizarre. It's not the first time I've heard someone questioning the animal's reality. It's not a good argument, and it's very easy to stress test this point to the point where they'll kind of back off the issue, but we'll get into it.
I have to use my empathy, I have to use my heart.
I've seen a video one guy, he's slaughtering, have you seen the video of the guy slaughtering he's not actually slaughtering the animals, but he's like showing how they slaughter the animals in Islam.
When he brought this up, I listened to him and my jaw dropped open. I could not believe that this was a point of argument, that when you speak the words, Bismillah, like when you speak those words over an animal, the animal will lay down and offer their neck to you. Now, I went and researched this video and I found the video. It was very easy to find. I was appalled. What you're seeing with this is the carer of these animals, perhaps a lifelong carer who has had a bond with these animals since birth, has raised these animals, has then gone and betrayed those animals by killing them prematurely, right? That's what I believe you're actually seeing here. Now, if someone you trusted for your entire life, who has actually been like a paternal figure to you since you were born, told you to lie on your back, would you? I mean, why wouldn't you? I want to remind you that in this day and age, this is all unnecessary, right? So this is not survival. It used to be survival, but it's not nowadays. If you're in the UK in 2023, it's not. I'm sorry, it's not. But also, when we're looking at the footage, like, it's very clear that this animal is confused, they are distressed, and they are out of options. There's no other option the animal has. A larger man is wrestling this animal to the ground, flipping them upside down and holding their face. This is a female goat. She has no other resources at her disposal. She's confused, she's bleating, she's kind of whimpering there in confusion, like what is going on? His knee is on her chest. And what other options does she have? She tried struggling, she tried calling out, and those things didn't work. She's not an apex predator, she can't bite. What does she do?
This is total submission.
you need to show to a skeptical person.
Bismillah.
Screaming out
okay, I'm
in
not doing
distress,
anything yet.
screaming for her friends,
Bismillah,
for his
Allahu
friends.
Akbar. It's okay, babe.
Oh yeah, it's okay. And he's going, oh, it's okay, it's okay. Well, it's not okay, is it? If you're really simulating a slaughter, it's not okay for the kid who clearly just wants to be left alone. I'm appalled. I honestly got to say, like, for a lot of it, I was able to joke and laugh and like we were able to have a good discussion. But this point messed with me. How you can interpret that because you speak some magic words over this animal, that it's some kind of programming in their brain that just allows them to shut down and offer themselves to you as a free meal. I don't think I need to say more about it. I think add the pieces up, you will see how ludicrous that argument is.
He's reading the name of Allah over the animal, and the animal submits. He lies down and stretches his neck. You find it hard to believe, yeah?
He got the wrong end of the stick. He thought I was speechless because I'd just been bested in an argument. No.
So that's why I said, if God says something's allowed, that's it for me. Because you can't be more right than God, right?
Yeah, this is why I don't like to...
If God says that something's allowed,
Yeah.
do you think humans can come and say, I think that they've now outsmarted God and think, you know what, it's better to stay away from it completely?
Yeah, you could see me in that video being like, oh boy. Because if that's what you truly believe, then no amount of reasoning can budge you. Like, what kind of logic do I need to use to tell you that we should value logic? What kind of reasoning should I use to tell you that we should value reasoning? What kind of evidence should I provide to you to show you that we should value evidence? You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of rolling my eyes here thinking I'm going to be talking to a wall soon if he digs in on this position. But also, if he really wants to commit to this position, he has to take all of it. He has to take everything that the Quran says. Right? He can't cherry pick anymore. He can't interpret it, right? So let's bring up some of these things, okay? Advises for men to beat their wives if they don't obey them, to cut off the hands of thieves. A man may marry 4 wives. A man may marry a girl who hasn't reached puberty. These are things that he has to take along with his position if he wants to do that, right? He can't cherry pick anymore. That wouldn't be consistent with what he's just told me. A man can have sex with prisoners of war. There are instructions on how to do this. A man may marry the wife of his adopted son. A woman's witness testimony is half of that of a man's. He has to believe this. He has to stick to this, all right? This widely known verse orders Muslims to fight non-Muslims simply because they do not believe in the same God that Muslims do, right? Fight those who do not believe in Allah, nor in the latter day, nor do they prohibit what Allah and His Messenger have prohibited. Not follow the religion of truth out of those who have been given the book until they pay the tax in acknowledgement of superiority and they are in a state of subjugation. Okay, so he has to take all of it. I wasn't able to press him on this in the heat of the moment, but I knew that this is just shaky ground for an argument.
LGBT.
Yeah.
Some people say it's right, some people say it's wrong. How do you know which one's right and which one's wrong?
Big change in the subject here.
What do you think about, like, people who choose to be gay or people who choose to be
They're
trans?
not hurting anyone else. They're not causing any harm to anyone. Why should we...
Yeah, so you're using your logic to say that your opinion is going to be different from another person's opinion.
I mean,
right?
I was really worried here in this part that he was trying to divert the subject away from the victims, which are the animals. But I don't think he was. I think he was just trying to make a point that for a difference in opinion, that is a problem that secularists have. So, and I wanted to bring it back to the animals as quickly as possible. Luckily, I was able to just get across a quick point, which is that they're not hurting anyone. And that's the key difference here. There is a victim, and in the other, between 2 consenting adults and what they do in the bedroom, there is no victim involved, right? And that's what I'm concerned with. That's what people are concerned with. The people who are going vegan, the Muslims who are going vegan, they are concerned with the victims. Now, I think the point he's trying to make, though, with this is that morality outside of religion is subjective, right? That's what he thinks. And I wish I had time to go into this in more depth, and I will be making videos about this in the future. But essentially, I am an atheist, I am a secularist. who holds the opinion that there is an objective morality. There is an objective way of treating conscious creatures better. Anyway, I don't want to go into too much there. So for now, I will just point you in the direction of this book called The Moral Landscape by Sam Harris. This is an excellent introduction to objective morality for secularists, agnostics, atheists. But I'm trying to make arguments from consistency. I'm trying to show him that within his own system of thinking, the consistency is not there. But it's like shooting a moving target when he's bringing up LGBT. So I'm going to try and bring it back to animals.
I mean, let's go to Islam. Let's go to the halal argument. Okay, you're living in London in 2023. I'm guessing you go to the supermarket to buy your food. I'm guessing you go to restaurants occasionally to eat out at restaurants. Over 99% of all of the animal products there are gained through these means, factory farming, which is not halal.
That's on them though, right?
No, don't. Why do you do that? Why do you?
It is on them.
No, why do you put your own moral responsibility on others instead of taking accountability for your own actions?
I don't know.
I basically showed him how he is financing factory farming, and he said that's on them, referring to the people who factory farm, the people who supply him with meat and dairy. You did see me there get a little bit frustrated, right? Because he is just not taking responsibility for his own actions. When starting conversations like this with the public, it's a fine line you have to tread, because the person you're talking to can usually just walk away whenever they like. They can just leave. And you have to be pleasant and receptive enough to actually keep the conversation going and not push them away. But at the same time, you have to correct them when they're just making bad points, or when they're trying to be deceitful, when they're lying to you, when they're being intellectually dishonest. You have to check them. This is a supply chain, right? And he is the end consumer. And I already established right in the beginning that they wouldn't be doing it unless he paid. It's deferring blame. It's an excuse, right? He knows what he would have to do to stop his involvement in factory farming. I've given him the solution, and I've shown how that solution can help.
And yes, you can do things to benefit you, to benefit your survival, to help you thrive. But
I was cut off there. What I wanted to say is you can do things that help you thrive, but not at the expense of others, not when there's a victim involved. Essentially, he's saying that because he derives some kind of benefit, not survival, he's not doing it for survival, but because he gets some kind of benefit, he is allowed to do it. But this clearly doesn't work. Like, I could steal your wallet and I would benefit from that. But just because I benefit from it doesn't make it morally okay for me to steal your wallet. Any kind of action that we have which involves an unwilling participant, where they have not consented and where they have their rights violated or they are caused harm, that is morally questionable. There needs to be an adequate reason for doing it, such as self-defense or survival. And this guy doesn't go with it.
I'm saying that probably in your favorite meals, there's an ingredient that is sourced from an animal that has been harmed. And you can use a different ingredient that is plant-based. You can switch it out. You can keep everything as your same meal. I do it all the time, right? You're not sacrificing anything. It's actually healthier for you. And it's better for the environment as well.
Sacrifice taste.
Right.
There we have a massive breakthrough. On reflection, I think the reason we had such a big breakthrough there is because I think the idea of going vegan felt extreme to him because he didn't realize how easy it is to go vegan and how simple it is. And I broke it down for him there, and it worked. It worked, basically. It eroded away his excuses. The only thing he was left with to say is the truth. And he laughed when he says the truth. And I find this very often when I'm doing my outreaches, when the person finally admits the truth and they say it's because it tastes good, they often laugh because it sounds silly to them. The irony of the whole thing is exposed. The only thing he had left to say is you sacrifice taste when you change the product, switch it out for an animal product. I'm not gonna drop that point just yet. Let me continue with this. The big thing that we've got to ask is, how does he know? How does he know what vegan products taste like? Because he's never gone vegan and clearly has not been interested in trying anything vegan, right? So it's an argument made from ignorance. He's saying that the vegan products don't taste as good, but it's an argument made from ignorance. I see this all the time. I hear this all the time. Now, the first thing I learned when I went vegan is just how advanced vegan food is now. This is something I didn't know until I went vegan. It's fortified with vitamins, it's fortified with B12, it tastes delicious, you can barely distinguish it from animal meat, it's close to zero in saturated fat, zero chance of food poisoning, salmonella, any of those nasty diseases that have developed in livestock populations. Even the stuff that people claim is processed about vegan food. There are processed vegan foods, but a lot of the vegan foods they're talking about, like tofu or tempeh, seitan, they're processed about the same amount as pasta. Very few ingredients in them, and they're just made from peas or wheat, gluten, or vegetables. The developments made in the taste of these vegan alternatives has come on by leaps and bounds, and only someone who's been eating vegan food would notice that, right? That only vegans know that. And until you've tried going vegan in 2023, 2024, you don't know. I'm sorry, you don't. Unless you've been trying these vegan products, which why would you if you're defending being an omnivore? Before I went vegan, I had never even heard of nutritional yeast. I'd never heard of seitan or tempeh. I had never really read the backs of labels and compared the nutrient value of vegan replacements and their meat alternatives, and I never tasted half of this stuff. So anyway, as we get further and further along on this talk, he gets more and more orthodox. He sinks in to the orthodox Muslim stance.
Basically, when it comes to things like this, as a Muslim, we believe you go back to the Quran, right? You don't use your own logic with this stuff. You go back to the Quran. What does God say about it?
I kind of count that as a victory for me, because I know that anyone listening to this conversation who hears that, any of them who value logic in any way, will now be less on his side. You know, they will realize, okay, that is very weak. Like, you're saying to dismiss all logic. I count this part as a victory, but he's retreating. He's making a tactical retreat into Orthodox religion. I know this video is called Muslim versus Vegan, but here I'm going to be brutally honest, guys. I don't think this guy is actually a strict Muslim. For the sake of the interview, I was taking his word for it, giving him the benefit of the doubt. But on reflection, I think he adopted the identity of a strict Muslim because he thought it would anchor him in the debate. We see this in a lot of outreach conversations. People adopt all kinds of identities as their own when they are being held accountable. I've had people lie about themselves being vegans. You know, they would say, well, I tried veganism in the past. And you press them a little more and you find out they didn't. They lie about being doctors, dietitians. They adopt all sorts of identities. And I can't really call them out for it, you know? So I just have to adapt. And I have to say, okay, well, if that really is what you're saying, here are the problems with it. It's like shooting a moving target. It's really, really tricky. I'm an outsider to the culture. And so it's a bit harder for me to call out any nonsense. And so he thought that that would be where he had the best chance of staying in his side and not being one round to the vegan side. So he buckled down and he really entrenched himself in this position of being a strict Muslim.
Based on our actions, on our behavior right now, in 2023, when it comes to the issue of eating halal, I think I'm a better Muslim than you.
No, that's...
I can't believe he let me say that. That was bold of me to say.
I'll give you an example. Remember I told her...
All you would have to do is by accident eat one food in the year that is haram. That's all you'd have to do for me to be a better Muslim than you.
How would I eat something haram?
By accident.
I think the point still stands completely. If you're really taking responsibility and accountability for yourself, you will be trying to control the number of ways that you can eat haram food by accident. Veganism is the way that you reduce the likelihood of helping an industry that is at its very core haram.
You know that haram by accident. What if no sin on it? For example, imagine somebody feeds me pork and I didn't know it's pork. I'm not going to get the sin. God knows if you knew or not, right?
Right.
So if somebody feeds me a pork burger and I thought it was chicken, why am I going to get... That would be unjust for me to get sin for it. I didn't know it was pork.
Now, that could work. Like that, what he said there could be a valid point. I'll give him that. I give him that. That could be a valid point. If he had no idea about the factory farming that makes up 99% of all food in the UK, including restaurants, supermarkets, even the halal section in supermarkets, they're not raising the animals by halal standards. They're not killing the animals by halal standards in the UK, where he lives. If he really didn't know, his point would be valid. But he does.
And you're paying for it.
It's like, for example, if somebody murders somebody, what have I got to do with it?
What have I got to do with it? If you're paying someone to be murdered, you're definitely involved. He's paying for animals to be killed.
Why would I get the blame? That's not fair.
When seeing this part back, I felt this sting of irony about what he was saying. When he's bringing in this concept of fairness. Why would I get the blame? That's not fair. As if anything about this system of cruelty that he's trying to defend is fair. Like, is it fair to the animals? And yet, he's talking about, I can't get the blame for something someone else has done. That's not fair. Now, where does fairness fit in with his entire worldview? Fairness. When they are trying to defend the abuse of innocent animals for their taste pleasure. They use this mental gymnastics so that as long as in their head they can somehow work out a way to disagree with veganism, they can say, well, I had no other option because I disagree with being vegan.
Do you think I'm being deviant by saying let's not cause
Not
animals harm?
intentionally, but they weren't.
Let's leave
intentionally.
animals alone, let's not cause them any harm. Do you think that's deviant to say?
No, I get it's coming from ethical place. Yeah. What you're saying makes logical sense. But that's why I said we don't go by logical.
It doesn't make religious sense?
Like, he's saying that I'm trying to add some kind of doctrine to this thing. Like, I'm trying to create a rule. I'm not creating a rule for people to follow by showing people the consequences of their financial choices and showing how it's inconsistent with their current values. That's freedom of speech right there. I'm not creating a rule. So anyone who says that vegans are like dictating what someone should do, they're forcing this upon them, no. But at the same time, I'm sure you uphold freedom of speech, right? I have the freedom to call you out on your bullshit. But yeah, I tried to kind of use that statement to highlight the ridiculous of it. You know, is it deviant, religiously deviant to say, let's not cause unnecessary harm to animals?
Yeah, but for you to refute that, you have to come with text.
The point that he's making there really highlights why he chose religious fundamentalism as his last hill. This is the one where he realized he might have an advantage because I'm an outsider. I don't have the credentials. And this is one of the only places that you can retreat to where potentially you can shut down all reasoning, all logic. You can just say, yeah, well, you're not a Muslim. You're not a disciple. You're not one of the people I listen to. It's the equivalent of like, you're playing a video game, you're on a one versus one against someone, and instead of actually using the buttons, let's say it's in a fighter game, a button basher game, instead of actually using your controller to beat the other person, you decide to just turn off the console. So, you know, I count that as a victory. I think I will end it there because this video has gone on really, really long and I'm gonna have a hard time editing it down as it is. I'll just end with the last highlight.
What's more important? That I have a boyfriend or that you care about stupid animals? Do I have a boyfriend or do you care about stupid animals?
So this guy, I mean, a lot of people responded about this guy in the comments saying how utterly insane this guy is. If someone comes and says such insensitive things about animals, I want to leave it in. You know, I'm going to leave it in the edit because, you know, if you are non-vegan, you're siding with this guy. I did decide to blur his face in the end because I feel sorry for this guy. When the camera wasn't on him and when he was alone, I just saw him just sitting down like he was completely drunk and he was just looking really sad. Like he'd obviously just gone through a breakup. He was distraught and he was not in his right mind. So I didn't want to kind of create an attack on him or anything. So it's just an anonymous person and you can't see his face. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I hope I've made all the points I wanted to make. There's a lot I can say about a discussion like this. Let me know if you like these kind of breakdowns, kind of reflections on these debates. I don't know. I do these for learning purposes for myself anyway, but yeah, let me know what you think about this kind of format. Maybe I can smarten it up, tighten it up later. Yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.